So Valve issued an update today that this this one hit pretty hard, okay? Because I saw the price increase that they announced, and it was one of those like double takes because the Steam Deck 4 years since it came out has gone up in price considerably. And of course, as soon as this happened, people looked around and realized, oh wait, the Steam machine still needs to come out. It still needs to have its price announced. And as it's not looking good for this system, guys. This is a problem for the Steam machine, but we'll go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So let's head over here. This is on the Steam community page where Valve issued this update. They say the Steam Deck is back in stock. If you're unaware, the Steam Deck was out of stock for quite some time, and that did lead people wondering to, hey, wait a minute, is that just because the how expensive things are behind the scenes when it comes to RAM or storage, basically just the DRAM crunch that's going on? And yeah, it seems to be the case because now they're back in stock, but they had to alter the pricing on this. So another quick refresher: there are only two models right now. Remember, they discontinued the cheaper 256 gigabyte LCD model. It didn't make sense to produce anymore at the $400 price. So that baseline is just gone completely. Although there is still one thing you should be keeping an eye out for if you want a much, much cheaper entry for the Steam Deck that we'll look at here in a bit. And then I'll also give my updated price prediction, we'll say, for the Steam machine towards the end of this video. But here is the update for the pricing. Okay, Steam Deck OLED now available. The price increase for both models is due to rising memory and storage costs. This is not new. We've heard about this from everyone. Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, in that little the next box thing that outsold Microsoft and Xbox that quarter during the last holiday season. That also went up in price, by the way, and it all seems to stem from the big AI stuff that's going on, where data centers are being stood up, tons and tons of memory is being allocated to these different artificial intelligence projects, and it's just leaving less supply for these different companies to fight over, which naturally, supply and demand, is going to push up the price of these components just to get at a basic level to create these things. So here we are now with a Steam Deck OLED 512 gigabyte model at $789. And this is a system. I mean, I know it's the OLED model. They did like a pretty basic or standard refresh of the chip, but it wasn't like a substantial jump in terms of its overall performance. But this is essentially a hardware that was released in 2022 that has gone up considerably. Again, the baseline then was $400, and now we're seeing a $789 baseline if you want a new Steam Deck system here in 2026. And $789 is a $240 price increase from the $400 or $549 price that it was just yesterday. It was out of stock, but that was where we were sitting, which means that's nearly a 45% price increase. Now you can also see the Steam Deck OLED 1 terabyte. That's $949. That was $649. So that went up $300. Again, right, about a 45% price increase. And they just say the Steam Deck itself just hasn't changed. They just put that out there. These new prices reflect the current state of component costs and other global logistical challenges across the industry as a whole. We'll keep you updated if anything changes. Now, the thing that's different about Valve from a Sony, a Microsoft, or Nintendo, Valve is a private company, so they don't necessarily have the same out that you see people go to immediately for like publicly traded companies of, hey, they're reporting to shareholders, the line has to continue going up. They can't. In fact, remember, Nintendo is getting pressure from investors for not raising the price of the Switch 2. Then they do, and then their stock still falls. But who really knows what investors want? The point is, Valve tends to be a bit more, or has the ability to be more agile than those companies do because Valve is private for things like this. But even they're like, hey, it's going up in price 45%. And that's it. Now, if you want to get a Steam Deck, and people, of course, caught on to this right away, you can look towards their refurbished Steam Deck section. And I have I have actually taken a look at some of the refurbished ones, and they're actually pretty good. Like Valve, of course, does their whole certification process for it, and cleans it, makes sure everything's solid, and then you get it, and it actually just looks like a new Steam Deck. But these were in stock for, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe, because the 64 gigabyte LCD is $280. So you'd like to think that people who were still, I don't know, 4 years later holding out on a Steam Deck, hey, maybe they're thinking the price is going to go down eventually. Here we are now, though. But I'd like to think people who were waiting for a Steam Deck did get one. I have a feeling you also have a lot of resellers who realized, oh, wow, the baseline price for a Steam Deck is nearly $800. I can buy this $279 system and resell it for $500, no problem. So I do think there are scalpers basically who also took advantage of this. But the point is, it's sold out now. I guess keep an eye on this page if you really want a Steam Deck, because this might be the best way to go about it. So now sitting here looking at these two prices, which is absolutely ridiculous, it's impossible to recommend a Steam Deck at this point. I mean, guys, $790 for a Steam Deck OLED. It's the screen is nice. I will give them that. The battery life's decent, but we have so many handhelds now that are actually kind of close. Like the $949 model, it's right near that ROG Xbox Ally X handheld, and that one is much more capable than the Steam Deck. So I don't know why you wouldn't just spend another $50 or so and get that model. So Valve is just in a weird spot as it is with the Steam Deck, and maybe they're thinking they already have their install size, so it's not that big of a deal. This is what we have to sell it at now. The problem is the Steam machine, okay? Because if we're looking at a near $800 Steam Deck, 512 gigabyte model, 16 gigabytes, by the way, of RAM. And then here comes the Steam machine, 512 gigabyte model with 16 gigabytes of system memory, 8 gigabytes of video memory. All of a sudden you go, wait a minute, the Steam machine actually has more of the components that are spiking prices on these things. Even though this has an OLED screen and it has like a control set here with the buttons and the joysticks and has a battery, I kind of still think the Steam machine is going to be right around the price of this 512 OLED. My updated price prediction at this time for the Steam machine is $800, like $799. And I think now Valve is mostly thinking about what can they do to sweeten the deal a bit without having to throw more components at it. So like the 2 terabyte Steam machine is obviously over $1,000. I don't think anyone's disputing that. Just for where we're seeing with prices on these things. So I think the 512 gigabyte Steam machine coming in at $800 with Half-Life 3, okay, it comes with a game. Again, you can kind of do the math in your head. It's like, well, $60 or $70 game. Technically, I was going to buy that anyway. So the system is $740 or something. And you know what? I don't even think the $800 model comes with a controller. I think with a controller, there'll be like a whole bundle for it. I kind of think that's like, this is sort of a weird number, isn't it? 789. I kind of think it's 769 or 779, something like that. And that's how they're, or 869 or 879. That's how they're going to make it work. It's like you get a slight discount on the controller, you get Half-Life 3, and they somehow managed to avoid the $1,000 price mark that it makes no sense to launch a Steam machine at $1,000 for the 512 gigabyte model. It just doesn't. But it also doesn't make sense to sell a Steam Deck that came out in 2022 at $800, but here we are. And at this time, we've seen all these different companies raise prices almost against their will. Again, people seem to think that these companies want their systems to get more and more expensive as generation goes on. That just makes no sense for the business model that we've observed for like the entirety of history for video game systems. It doesn't really work. So the conversation that's going to be very uncomfortable for people to have, but they have to start thinking about this, is the idea of local compute being in serious jeopardy right now. Like, so the having a PC at home has been basically taken for granted, right? Being able to build your system or get parts together at a reasonable price to put together a budget system, it's starting to feel like that's more and more out the window. Like every couple of weeks when we see this stuff happen, and it does make me think that when we start to see, say, the newer video cards, or we start to see prices around these different systems come up, say for next generation, it's like, man, it's getting really difficult to justify spending $1,000+ or video cards, thousands of dollars. And then you have on the opposite side, manufacturers who go, well, we'll sell to these AI companies. Like, why wouldn't we just do that? We'll make money. We're a publicly traded company. That's our goal. And then you start to have less and less options for consumers. And then eventually they push you more and more to the cloud. But that's maybe a conversation for another day. I think there just needs to be more awareness around where I think this industry is starting to push consumers, and it's not a great one. So I know that's kind of just coming off of just the Steam Deck went up in price. What happens with the Steam machine? People need to be more like thinking about that though. But here we are now with the Steam Deck jumping in price 45% 4 years after it comes out. And the Steam machine at some point on the horizon, I mean, I assume they want to get this thing out by next month. So they ripped the Band-Aid off for the Steam Deck. Time to rip the Band-Aid off for the Steam machine. Again, I'm coming in baseline 512 gigabyte model, no controller, $800, and we'll see what bundles or other things they can have to at least try to make it seem somewhat manageable for some of these prospective buyers. But let me know what you guys think about all this down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.